Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Wish Alliance Cosmic Conversations. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and tonight our special guest is Waxella Sananda. And so Waxella is an amazing woman. She has been a lifelong extra-dimensional contactee and holds memories from multiple Earth and star race incarnations. Her mission is to assist and to support the ascension of Earth and humanity. She also is a galactic shaman, an embodied ascension trainer, a conscious life mentor, an activator of spiritual gifts, an author, and the host of the Academy of Ascension Summit and podcast. And that is actually how I met with Waxella. I was one of her guests, and as we began to talk, it was very, very obvious that we had a lot in common. I find that to be true with a lot of my starseed sisters as we all start to come back. So Waxella, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the program over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Sheila. And thank you everyone for being here, for being present. I feel really honored to get to share my work and my life with all of you. So I just really want to say thank you for having me. We got some background noise. Claire, I think.
If everyone could please go on to mute.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you so much.
Thanks. So it's not a PowerPoint. It is going to be just me, and I am sharing some of my greatest stories, some of my most impactful stories from a lifetime of experiences that I've had starting when I was very young. We've got Claire again. Can we have you mute? Great, thanks. So what I really want to start with is, in the tradition of, all of our ancient lineages, we share stories. We've handed down stories from generation to generation to generation. And I feel like the spoken story, the verbal telling of it, is so powerful. Of course, in the time before we had books, this was the only real way to share information. But it's still so relevant to be able to tell our stories and share the frequency transference from our voice, as well as the emotional expression, and just the telling of a story is, in my world, a very sacred thing. And I've been telling stories since my earliest memories, my whole life. And I do feel like it's part of the way that I share energy, the way that I share encoded information, which is what I came here to do. So just know that my point in sharing these stories is not so that you think that I'm special or unique. The point is to elicit the magic from within you and to help you get in touch with your inner truth, with your inner multidimensional expansive consciousness. So that's the real reason that I'm choosing to share stories, especially with you tonight. I am going to begin with the Emerald Buddha. And years ago, I did a trip, a 5-week trip. I was visiting Thailand, Bali, and a very short, brief time in Singapore. And during that time, it was so expansive. It was so beautiful. 5 weeks visiting these beautiful cultures. And I also met someone and kind of fell in love on that trip. And so it was the last day of my time in Thailand, the day before I was flying out. It was the last time I would likely be seeing this guy that I had grown so fond of. And so I was feeling this mix of wistfulness, sadness, but also joy, and just being so full of this magical trip that I just experienced. And I chose to go visit the King's Temple and the Emerald Buddha. I had heard about the Emerald Buddha there. That was something I wanted to experience before I left. So I took the journey. I took a water ferry up the river and got to the temple, the King's Castle, which is this very, very ornate structure with it's golden and green and red, beautiful colors. And it's so just extremely ornate and flashy and just very, very powerful. And so I was wandering around and just kind of enjoying the sights and looking for the Emerald Buddha. And it took me quite some time to finally find the temple of the Emerald Buddha. And finally, when I saw it, what I saw was all of these people filing in. They're taking their shoes off at the front, they're filing through and then coming out the other side. And so on going in, I knew in my heart, I just knew that this was going to be a powerful experience. I didn't know what would happen in there, but I knew it was going to be amazing. And so I took off my shoes, I walked in the door, and I was in this crowd of people, probably about 6 people deep, and we're walking along this little corridor, I guess, and I could look and see there was this huge ornate wall. It was golden, it had all different sorts of gemstones, all different colors, and in the middle was a statue of an emerald colored green Buddha. And I saw it, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm filing through with the people and like, that's it. That's it. That's all there is. There has to be more. There has to be, I can't just be looking at a statue of a Buddha. Like that's not what I came for. There must be more. And how do I access that? And as I was having this thought, I felt a tugging on my hand. And so I looked down, and a child monk was pulling on my hand. And this child was in saffron robes, not much taller than my hand, very, very small, and these huge dark eyes. And this child pulled me out of the crowd and to the front, where I could see that there were people sitting and in prayer, in meditation, in front of the Emerald Buddha. And I thought, oh, wow, okay. And the child gestured to me to sit. And so I sat. And, meanwhile, I was raised Christian, and I have this thought in the back of my head, is this idol worship? And is this okay? But I knew in my heart, this is what I came for. So of course I was going to go have the experience. And so whenever I found myself in a place where it's very high frequency and it's a sacred space, I find it very easy to drop in deeply and very quickly. And that's exactly what happened. As I went into meditation, the room I was in disappeared, the people disappeared. I could have just as well have been the only one there. And I found myself in front of the Emerald Buddha, which at first appeared to me in its statue form. And I just asked from my heart, who are you? And what is this? And how can I understand? And that curiosity created an opening and an invitation. And the Emerald Buddha revealed himself to me. And I felt my heart expand so much. I was overcome with emotion, as so often I am, or we are, when we are confronted with a very high frequency being. The first thing that happened was I started feeling sadness and weeping out that sadness, the pain of leaving, the pain of a broken heart, and the letting go. And then all that led to releasing all of the pain of all of my broken hearts and all of the times I've been disappointed or hurt in the past, and even the pain of my childhood and not being understood. And as I released and cleared and let those emotions out, the Emerald Buddha became more like larger and more prevalent. And I felt this just infinite love, this complete acceptance, complete loving, beautiful embracing of this Buddha who was just pure, non-judgment, true love. And I felt my heart expand. And in that expansion, all of the pain was gone. There was just complete relief and peace. And then I could feel the love. Then I could feel the joy. It was cracking me open so that I could truly, truly be present for this amazing experience that was really like a once in a lifetime experience of getting to understand, to know the Emerald Buddha personally, and to receive that into my heart like a baptism and an awakening. And so I wanted to start with that story so that you could all feel the essence of the Emerald Buddha in your heart, and to enter into this listening of these stories with an open heart, to suspend judgment, and just let yourself fall in like a child to the enjoyment of the story and the magic, and let that magic awaken within you as you're experiencing these words. So when I was 3 years old, that was my first real conscious contact with non-human life. I was lying in bed and I could hear my mother getting ready for bed down the hall, which was comforting. And I was in that space between awake and asleep. And I was in a house in rural Iowa on top of a hill in a second-story bedroom. And when I saw a bright light at the window, I knew, even at that young age, something very strange is going on. We don't see lights at our second-story windows on top of a hill at night, especially in rural Iowa where there wasn't any traffic or cars. And so as I was noticing this light, it came into my bedroom. And the next thing I know, there was a being at my window, and he was, in my opinion, a pretty scary looking being. He had, he was an insectoid. He had a cricket looking head and a human looking body. And he was wearing a sort of silver spacesuit or onesie. And I had no idea what he was doing there. And I didn't have time to think about it. The next thing I knew, I was inside an energetic container. I could see bright light, but there was a lot of pressure and a lot of like tingling, and it was really uncomfortable. And I was trying to yell for my mom, and I was trying to move, and I wanted to get up and run away, but that wasn't possible. I was paralyzed and I had no voice, and I struggled, and I gave it my all. And I was pretty feisty when I wanted to be. And I never stopped struggling that whole time. And I really didn't want to have this experience. And I found myself, the next thing I knew, there was a little bit of a release. And then I found myself stuck to the side of my bed. And it was the feeling of pins and needles from head to toe, from the top of my head all the way down my back to the bottom of my toes. I was that very uncomfortable, pins and needles feeling when your foot goes to sleep. That was what I was feeling, along with suction. And I felt like I was being like suctioned to the bed. And then in one moment, all of that energy went away. I fell to the ground. I stood up. I had no idea what to think. And I heard in my mind, don't tell the adults, they won't understand. And I got in bed and I went to sleep, and I didn't tell the adults. And it was probably 25 years before I told anybody any of these things. So as I got a little older, I started having flashbacks. I didn't fully remember what had happened, and I certainly didn't know what had happened. So I went to a hypnotherapy QHHT practitioner, and I went back to that time, and I got to interview the insectoid being that was there. And I got to experience that entire scenario from the perspective of watching and being an observer rather than being the experiencer. And so when I reviewed that experience, first of all, I asked the insectoid, who are you and what are you doing here? And he said, I'm just the messenger. I'm just doing my job. It has nothing to do with me. And so I said, well, can you tell me, what does this have to do? What is happening here? And so what I could see then from this perspective is there was a silver cord, like a tube of light coming in my window and connecting to this pod that my child body was inside of. And he said, this cord connects to a galactic council. You are a member of that galactic council. It's a council of 12 races who each of those races is representing they're elected and they're representing an additional 12 races. So it's really a council of 144 races, but it's a council of 12. And I have a position on that council. And I chose to send this aspect of myself here and to be connected in this way so that I could send and receive information to that collective so that they could understand more about the human experience and life on planet Earth. And so I went on quite a while just being okay with that. And then I went through a phase years later where I wasn't sure I wanted to be connected to a council. Like I said, I'm a little rebellious. So I did choose at one point to cut cords with that council to be sovereign for a period of time. And that was great. That was great for my experience of embodiment. It was during that time that I really understood how to embody myself. I had a lot of spiritual expansion during that time. And then I've come back and rejoined not from the point of, because before I cut cords, I felt like I was a servant and maybe almost like a slave, like I didn't have free will choice in it. And after I cut the cords, I came back in my own choice to be a part of that as a peer, as an equal, as like a one-on-one, not as like, you have to do this because, and that works much better for me. And it also allowed me to step into my power and own my service and responsibility here on the planet at this time. So I think one of the things that I really want to convey about that experience and all of that was entailed in that is that my understanding of myself as a collective through each one of these experiences has grown from, in the beginning, I felt like, I was just a single person. And then as I did more spiritual work, had more spiritual experiences, I expanded out to realize, okay, I'm a collective of people in a way. I have a lot of awarenesses in a lot of different times and places. So it's all still me, but there's more of me than I originally was aware of. And then as I'd done more work and had more experiences, I've realized that collective keeps growing and growing. And the understanding that we can tune into our higher self collective and channel ourselves from that higher self perspective has continued to grow and expand throughout all of these experiences that I've had. So moving forward, at 7 years old, my favorite thing to do was go play in what I affectionately called the swamp. It was really a marshland in rural Iowa that I lived by a lake, but I loved to ride my little bike and go to the swamp. And I felt like I was going into the fairy realm. I was, but I would, every summer day that I possibly could, I'd ride my bike there. I had my little 1 gallon ice cream bucket that I wanted to use to collect frogs and salamanders and whatever creepy crawlies I could find because I just like to observe them. And so I would go through the weeping willow trees. The weeping willows were the guardians, and they were all over as I entered in, and I could feel the change of energy as I would walk through the weeping willows. Everything sort of quieted down. And then I would walk through the giant cattails, which were taller than I was. And again, things would start to kind of settle down as I walked through. And I was going through the veils. I didn't understand that then. I do now. And then I would arrive at the edge of the water. And what would happen is at first I wanted to catch frogs, and they're hard to catch if you're from a regular perspective. So they would see me and they would jump in the water and jump away from me. But then I would tune in to the earth, and I would drop my energy way down to ankle level and below, and I would become one with the earth, with the plant life, with the frogs. And I didn't know it, but I was actually shape-shifting. I like to say the frogs taught me to meditate. I was shape-shifting into the fairy realm and into a frog type beings so that I could see them. And then I could easily grab them and fill up my bucket. Once I did that, they were like shiny beacons of light with these bright green and golden, the skin that just glistened, and it was so easy to see. And so I loved to just go there and tune in and become one with the land and feel that I was part of everything. And I was also an ornery little child. So I collected all these things. I did frog races and watched the salamanders, and then I'd always let them go when I was done. Hopefully I didn't harm them, but I love that I got to experience some of my earliest shamanic work as a child. And there were beings there that were guiding me, that were educating me, that were assisting me. And to me, it just felt like the best playground that I could ever imagine. And it was absolutely my favorite place to go. When I was 17, I was a foreign exchange student in Merida, Mexico, and the Yucatan Peninsula, where the Mayan ruins, there are lots of Mayan ruins there, Chichen Itza, Tulum, Loltun, Uxmal. And any chance I had, I would go to the Mayan ruins. And now this is when my memories really started coming back to me, especially when I went to Chichen Itza. And I would walk around, and at that time, probably not anymore, that was very early 90s, but you could climb on the ruins. And I know now I was picking up codes for myself that were activation codes. And during that time, I started having memories. And I remember even taking the tour where the guides would be talking about, things that the Mayans did and their behaviors and games and all kinds of things. I'd be like, no, that's not how we did it. I would be thinking in my mind. And then I think, well, that's a strange thought. Like, how do I know? And yet, there was this part of me that was remembering being there. And so that was a huge activating experience. That was the year I also really started seeing ships in the sky consciously and being aware that I was a seer. And I still didn't have anyone to talk to about these things because I was still living in Iowa. I went that summer to a place called Bryn Mawr. It was a girls' camp in Pennsylvania. And one of the camp counselors' jobs was to sit. We would all sit out front at night. There was no light pollution. So the stars were so bright. And I would sit and watch the stars, and they would be fleets of ships beaming at me. I mean, they were making formations in the sky. And I was like, wow, it's definitely not an airplane or a helicopter or anything I've ever seen before. I would ask the other counselors, do you see that at night? And they're like, oh, we see the stars. They were not seeing what I was seeing. But that was really an activating year for me. So after college, I moved to Dallas, and I had a retail store there. And I decided, well, actually one day I was just, reading a magazine, and I saw an ad for Dream School, and someone was teaching psychic activation in Dream School. I'm like, oh, wow, that sounds fun. So I started going to these Dream School classes, which happened to be just a few blocks from my shop. So very close to where I was living. And I learned during the dream school classes, which were always in the evening, to remember up to 5 dreams per night. We did lots of psychic awareness activations. So I really learned to start to harness some of my psychic gifts. And so simultaneously, I also realized I was going to dream school in my dreams. Some of my consciousness was being educated in various places while I was sleeping. So that was a really expansive time. And the building was very Harry Potter-like. There were 2 levels, and you would go in a door and go up to the top, and that's where we had our classes. And I always went at night, but I wanted to go during the day because there were interesting shops around there. And so one time, more than once, I went and tried to find that place during the day. I would go drive down the street up and down where it was always there at night for dream school. I could never find it during the day. So very in the realm of Harry Potter, it only seemed to exist in the evenings when dream class was happening. So while I was in Dallas, I started getting these messages about moving to Hawaii. And it was coming kind of from every angle. There was a book or a magazine just showed up on my desk when I was out for lunch one day. I don't know how it got there, but it was about Kauai. And then I would hear people walk in my store talking about Kauai. And I went home from work one day, and a roommate of mine had put a magazine open on the table, and it had the Nepali Coast Trail, which is in Kauai. And I'm like, okay, clearly I'm getting messages, Spirit's sending me to Kauai. So I started to arrange my life to spend 3 months in Kauai. And simultaneously, my friends started telling me, hey, there's a shaman in town. You really need to meet him. He kind of looks like you, he kind of talks like you. He reminds us of you. You've got to meet this guy. I'm like, sure, I'll meet him when the time's right, I guess. Again, this is before cell phones, so we didn't have that way of connecting in the 90s, still early 90s. And so one day came home from work, and the next door neighbors, I lived in an old artist commune that had been converted into apartments, very eclectic, called Moon Mansion. And the next door neighbors came over and said, hey, we have this shaman at our house, come and meet him. So I went over there, I met the shaman. I had a couple of hours conversation with the shaman. At the end of that conversation, he said, I'm going to be traveling to Hawaii, and I want you to come with me. And I said, okay, I'm in. I've already made plans to go. And so what I didn't know yet then is that he was my twin flame. And my twin flame consciousness had tried to get a body. We had intended to be here together during this time. He was not able. His energy was such that he was spontaneously aborted multiple times, and it just didn't work. And so there was a man who had a massive drug overdose, and he went out of body and kind of went into a holding pattern. And meanwhile, my twin flame was a walk-in to that body for a period of approximately 3 years. So during this time, we started out traveling across the Southwest, and we visited. He had a mentor. His mentor was a Lakota medicine woman. She lived in outside of Prescott, Arizona. And she was off grid. There was no electricity. It was candlelight and barely running water. And so we went to stay on her land, and her land was magical. She had 13 medicine wheels that she had built. And she was also a walk-in. I wasn't that familiar with walk-ins at the time. I didn't really know what that meant, but from her stories, it was clear that she was not the original owner of that body. But she would tell us stories about, she would go out flying ships at night, and she was really magical, but really intense to be around. So there were also 13 little dogs on that land, and these dogs were so connected that when someone would go pray in the wheels, and you were expected to pray from morning till night in the wheels, that's what we did there. And then we'd have group gatherings where we'd get together and do spiritual work, but then we'd all go disperse into the wheels. And the little dogs would sit with you because you would go so far out or get so expanded. Those little dogs would watch your body until the moment you came back. So one morning when we were there, I told her, I really want to go. I really want I desire to have my spirit name. I know that it's like I'm ready. I feel ready for it. And I desire to have it. When I was 3 years old, I told my mom she named me the wrong name. I was going by Lotus. I really was just I felt ready to receive. And she said, okay, go out and pray. And so I did. I went out, I walked into one of the medicine wheels, did my prayers, sat down, and I was instantly transported to a higher dimensional experience of reality. And in this space, which was very, very real, because when you're in a higher dimensional experience, there's more information. The people are more real than if they're 3D people. Everything has more sensation, more like it's more real. So there was 2 Mayan grandmothers, the abuelas, came and sat with me. And they were doing energy work with me. So one was in front of me working with my heart center, and the other one was standing working on my crown center. They were doing this energy work, and I could feel myself opening, not just my consciousness, but my physicality, all of my awareness just opening and expanding as they were doing this work. And then in one huge eternal moment, they gave me my name, Waxella, and it was a download. It was an activation. I heard and felt it. I knew the spelling. I knew the lifetimes that it was connected to. I could feel the parts of myself that were known as Waxella. I understood the meaning of it. I understood my soul in a way that I had never understood before in this incarnation anyway. And it expanded me to a massive degree. And it was also a synesthesia experience where I'm seeing and feeling and tasting, and it's like I could hear, I was inside of the experience, and everything had texture and taste and color, and just this amazing, delicious reverberation of experience and frequency download. And so when I returned to my body, I knew I had received my name, but I didn't feel ready to be known as that because it felt bigger than me. It's like when you're a small child and you get a new pair of shoes, but they're a size and a half too big. And I, you try them on and you're like, they're not quite comfortable because they're too big, but you're going to grow into them. And so that's how it felt. And so it actually took me a couple of months to start going by Waxella. And then a couple of years later, I made that my legal name. It's been my legal name ever since. And every time I hear someone call me by that name, it's a reminder of my purpose here, of my spiritual path, and the meaning is divine love. And so it's a calling me back to the heart and to divine love. And I find it very powerful to have my spirit name, and I'm so grateful for that experience. So while I was with the shaman, oh my gosh, there was so much magic. I couldn't possibly fit it all in, but some of the things that happened while we were touring, we're going all the way across the US. One day, he said, we have a light ship escort. And I'm like, we have a light ship escort. What do you mean by that? And he said, well, look up. Look, and there was a sunroof on the car, and I opened it up and I could see that there was a light following along, but I was skeptical and like, that doesn't necessarily mean that's a light ship escort. So how do I know? And he said, well, ask it to do something. I'm like, oh, okay. So I said, well, if you're our light ship, and I made contact, with it consciously. And if you're our light ship escort, blink 3 times. And so this light blinked 3 times. I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting. Still, I'm not convinced. So he's like, well, try something else. So I'm like, okay, if you're our light ship escort, do a circle all the way around the car and come back. And it did. It went all the way around the car and came back. And I'm like, so it's our lightship escort. We have a lightship escort. I was convinced at that point, and we always had it wherever we went, that we were escorted. And that's just one of the magical things. I started seeing lightships everywhere during that time. I was kind of like a spotter. And I also found that I could consciously call them. What was also interesting is that not everybody could see them. Sometimes I'd be with a group of 5 people, 3 people could see them and 2 people couldn't. And that just shows, we only see what our consciousness or our perspective allows us to see. And if it's too much, we won't see it. But one of the days in Hawaii was evening. We lived on top of a mountain in Kapa'a. And we were driving home and I'm like, I think there's a lightship at our house. I was seeing a bright light and he's like, really? And he's like, yeah, I think there is. And so we got to our house and we had this house on a hill. It was in overlooking an organic garden in a valley that went out to the ocean. And we arrived, and this is really cool. We had a friend, Govinda, who was arriving at the same moment. And there is this massive lightship right off of our deck. And it was really, really big. I can't think of anything to compare it with, but, huge. It was a huge light, and it felt so close that we could almost reach out and touch it. And so we stood on the deck and you could feel this frequency, this energy beaming from it. And so the shaman was channeling verbally the words. I don't remember any of the words. I was just receiving the energetic transmission, and it was so powerful. Plus the visual of it, it was so beautiful. And what it looked like from my perspective was a round lightship. There were colors within it, very colorful. It was clearly conscious and it was communicating with us consciously. And we stayed like that for some time. It was visiting for a while, and then eventually it flew off and it joined up with several others. And then they all flew out to the ocean together. Again, the time before cell phones, if I had a cell phone, I don't know what I would have caught, but it would have been something. Probably just would have looked like a very bright light. But that was one of those experiences where, if there was any part of me that was in denial about the presence of, contact, that was it. Like there was no more denying. And we had a witness, which was really nice too. And we were sober. We were always pretty much usually sober, but not really sober. But in the land in Hawaii is so high that there's no veil. It's just you're interacting with higher dimensions all the time. Wow. There's so many more things that I could tell you. But I think where I want to end, last story, is a recent experience I had in December. I was on a date, and the date was ending, and we were saying goodbye. I was at my car and we're looking up at the stars, and this green meteor, it looks like a green meteor, green ball of light, goes flying over our heads. And it was crazy. Like it just like, whoever sees a green meteor, like it looked like a flaming ball of green light and not very far away. And then, we saw these 2 guys on a golf course go by, did you see that? And they were looking for it. But I happened to have another QHHT session scheduled like the next week. So during that session, it was interesting because I wasn't necessarily planning to ask about the green ball of light, even though it was really powerful. And I started out that session going into that green ball of light, and it was a ship. It was a light ship, and my twin flame was there. And I got to really just, have the experience of being with him, of feeling his energy again after quite some time. And then together, he took me to the Central Sun. And I have a very, very close connection to Central Sun. And he told me my consciousness resides in Central Sun. And I'm known as Amen Ra. And so I went there with him and I got to experience being in the central sun, like what it is to be the central sun and the magnetic force that holds universes together, and just the emanation of light coats and magnetism and power and love. And it was just so expansive and such a beautiful place to be. And I realize, again, back to where I started with the collective, my personal, human, I'm not a twin flame of a consciousness that large, but the collective I am, which I also believe the whole collective of humanity is a twin flame of Amen-Ra, of the central sun. And that when we sun gaze, it's great to sun gaze in the morning, at sunrise and at sunset. And when we sun gaze, we can consciously receive the essence of the central sun through our planetary or solar system sun into our skin, into our eyes, into our hearts, and allow that being to activate us and to go into oneness. And personally, I find that the most powerful meditation that I can do, especially with bare feet on the grass, on the bare ground, is just to ground and receive the light simultaneously, is so powerful. So I encourage all of you to try that and to intentionally invite the consciousness of central sun and Amen-Ra. And that's my last story. I do want to go into a short activation meditation so we can kind of just take all of this energy that I've just shared with you and embody it. And you can just really tune in and anchor it and make it your own in this meditation experience. So I invite you to get comfortable. If you want to take a drink of water first, you can do that. But just begin to get yourself comfortable. Close your eyes. Take some deep breaths. And as you're breathing, just expand the belly on the inhale, inhaling relaxation. And exhaling tension from your body. And as you're breathing, feel your heart center and make contact with the light in your heart. Feel your heart light growing, glowing, expanding out around your chest and expanding out around your body, into a golden column of light, holding and supporting you, holding an energetic container for your expansion. And now bring your awareness from your heart center up through the top of your head, all the way up into central sun, making contact with the heart light of central sun. And now bring that central sun energy, the heart light, the encoded information down into the crown of your head, inviting it into your body, into every cell, into your DNA, moving through the body, down the spine, feeling it anchoring in the base of your spine, spreading out into the bottoms of the feet. And now allow that line of energy to continue from the base of the spine all the way down into the center of the earth, making contact with the heart center of Mother Gaia, Mother Earth. And now feel that heart light of the divine feminine coming up through the layers of the earth, through roots carrying liquid crystal plasma, up into the base of your spine, up through your feet and legs, coming up your spinal column to the top of your head, spreading into every cell. And now centering again in your heart center. And in that heart light, there is a trinity of light from above, below, and within, the divine masculine and divine feminine coming together to birth the divine child, the I am presence, the creative new life that is the light of the spirit that I am, that each of us is. And so breathe into your heart center now, just feeling the expansion of the golden child within you. And feel this golden child growing in your abilities, activating your magic, activating your greatest creativity, activating your empowerment to know that you are here for a purpose on this path for a reason, that you've chosen this life and you have such a special mission and a special gift to share with the world. And now I invite you to really feel that gift and anchor the expansion of your gifts and the expansion of your light into the base of your spine, feeling it expand out around you as you claim, I am empowered in my divine light and my divine truth. I anchor this empowerment through my body, through my being, and I share this light with all of humanity, with the earth, with the stars, with my galactic brothers and sisters. And I spread this out through the grid work of the earth. And now joining together in your heart center, feeling that there is a central heart that we are all connected to. Allow yourself to feel the energy of the community heart. This is the heart space where we are all supported and supporting each other, held in place by the divine, the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, the divine light of I am. And just breathe that into your body, into your heart, knowing that you are fully supported in this mission, on this path, in your life, in this body, that we are so grateful for you being here now at this time of ascension. You are worthy, you are loved, you are cherished. So again, just breathe into your heart center, finding yourself back in that golden column of light. Breathing that light all the way down into the base of the spine, knowing that it's anchored there and that you can recall this divine light at any time. And then bringing your awareness back to that triangle portal of light in your heart and traveling back through into your physical body, bringing your awareness back to the physical, to the feet, up the legs, into your hips, wiggling your midsection, your shoulders, your neck, and your head. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes, feeling fully present, full of light, full of truth, and more magic than ever before. Thank you for joining me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Waxella. And I'm wondering, for those people who may be watching, if you could explain a little bit about Amun-Ra and the Great Central Sun.
Sure. This is my experience. I'm very experiential, so whatever I share is pretty much from my own experience. My experience of, first of all, the central sun, or the Great Central Sun. This is, to me, it's source itself, but source manifest as a magnetic center, the center of all that is, the center of creation. And that center of creation has universes around it, which, it's hard to kind of fathom. We can think of it like we know our solar sun is our sun. So our solar sun is inside, it's informed by other galactic suns. And so and then all of the galactic suns, all of the universal suns are rotating around, if you want to conceptualize it that way. This is all consciousness. So it's really outside of time and space, but we can conceptualize it as everything, all of the universes are rotating around central sun, great central sun, which is the magnetic frequency holder that holds all of creation in place. And so Amen-Ra, as I've been introduced, isn't a him or her, it's a consciousness, but I'll say him for the sake of making it easier, is Amen-Ra is the consciousness of central sun, the awareness really of all that is created, all of creation exists there. And so really, I would say Amen-Ra is the consciousness of the divine itself, of source light energy. And we can make contact with that, through the sun. And even you don't have to be outside. It doesn't have to be daylight. In your meditation, anytime you can contact Amen-Ra, or if it feels better for you to say Great Central Sun, to bring those light codes into your body, to embody them, to soak them up. That, to me, is the fastest path to ascension that anyone could do, because it's direct contact with divine light, and it's right outside our door every day. So obviously, Sheila, I'm a big sun gazer, and I know you have that connection to Central Sun. So I'll leave it there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I have one other question, and maybe it's partially a comment as well. But I loved what you were talking about when you mentioned the council and the fact that you wanted to cut the cords for your own sovereignty, to become your own individual in this lifetime. And I was wondering if you could share, if there are people that are listening that are ready to cut the cords, ready to move past some type of a big attachment that they have in this life. Can you share some tips with them?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I'm big on cord cutting. I practice shamanism. That was some of my early training. We just going throughout our lives on a day-to-day basis, we get corded to people, to spaces, to energetic experiences, to traumas. So it's a great energetic cleansing practice to cut cords regularly with everything. And sometimes I take that to an extreme, but I always have in place, when I'm cutting cords, that I'm leaving intact the cords that are for the highest good, unless I'm really consciously choosing, when I chose to disconnect from the council, I just chose to cut that cord completely. But usually, especially if I'm doing this with another person, that this is only cutting the disruptive cords, the cords that are not for the highest good of all involved. And one of the fastest and I'd say most effective ways to do this is to call in Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael is known for having his blue light sword, and he can bring that blue light sword in and use it to sever and cut the cord. So, I do a whole teaching on this. I'm going to give you just a super mini teaching on how to do it if someone wants to do it for themselves, and then you can contact me if you want more information. But you start out by envisioning the person, place, or experience, even an institution, whatever it is that you want to dissect, cut cords with. Sometimes it's an entity. And first you feel where you're at, you feel where they're at, you feel kind of the energy that exists between you. And you want to call in your guidance first too, and just, I like to call in the golden light, protect yourself, put yourself in a sacred, safe space. However you choose to do that. Then call in Archangel Michael. I claim verbally, I choose to sever and cut all unhealthy cords, attachments across all time, dimension, space, and reality now. Have him bring out the blue light sword, in front, in back, and then feel the energy shifting. And so what you want to do is release. You're going to release any energy that you were holding on to, and then reclaim. You're going to let that fully release, and then reclaim any energy that that was being held of yours by the other entity. And then reclaim that, let it integrate into your body, fortify your field, and feel yourself amplified. And then, especially if this is with another person, at the end, I create a rainbow bridge of light from my heart to their heart. If it's too traumatic and you just want to work with their higher self, that works too, from your heart to their higher self's heart. And then feel just the clarity of energy, the energy clearing. You're just sending pure gratitude and love. And I always end it with gratitude between the two parties. And then that clearing happens. And what's miraculous, I do this with clients, and oftentimes, they'll do it with exes and ex-partner, ex-spouse. And within days, I'll get a phone call and they'll be like, "You're not going to believe this, but my ex called me and apologized, or I ran into him in the grocery store and we had a really nice interaction for the first time in forever." And it's the energy, because you change energetically, even though they're not physically present. They're changing too. It's changing your reality, so your experience of them changes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And let's see, Cindy. Let me go ahead and bring you up. I see that you had your hand up a moment ago.
You're muted.
Yeah. Go ahead. You're on mute. Go ahead and unmute, Cindy.
Oh, there.
There you are.
Okay. I think I did it.
Yep.
You did.
Yep. Hi,
Okay.
Cindy.
Hi, Michelle. I was just wondering, I hear people talk about stargazing. Exactly what is that? I mean, are you actually looking at the sun, and what prevents you from getting blinded by the sun if you are?
Yeah, sun gazing. Absolutely. That's a great question. So when you start sun gazing, you do not have to look directly at the sun. And especially in the beginning, when you first start, it's recommended to do it. There's a whole practice around this, but I can tell you kind of the nutshell version. You only do it in the very beginning at 15 minutes after sunrise and 15 minutes before sunset, because that's the most gentle time to work with the sun with our eyes. And if you can do that, you can kind of start to train your eyes to receive the sun. And you can also desensitize your eyes to the sun by not wearing sunglasses as often as possible. I realize sometimes you need to, that's okay. But more and more, the more you go without sunglasses outside, the more you're receiving that sunlight into your eyes. I personally do not wear sunglasses. Well, once in a while I do, but usually I don't wear sunglasses. I don't wear sunscreen. And I will look at the sun any time of day, because I've been doing this for many, many years, and I've trained myself to be able to do that. And I've never gone blind, and I don't intend to. I know people that have stared at the sun for hours. I don't recommend that. And I don't even recommend looking at the sun. The thing that we were told, that, think about that. That's like a smear campaign on the sun. Well, why would anybody, who would not want us to look at the sun? Someone that doesn't want us to realize how much power is available to us when we do. Why would someone, want us to put dark glasses over our eyes when we go into the sun and cover our skin so that we can't receive it? Somebody that doesn't want us to be empowered by the sunlight, which is our food. That's our food, and we receive it just like plants do. Humans have receptors for sunlight, just like plants do. For me, it's fuel, it's energy. I could live on the sun. The prana of the experience of sun gazing is so powerful. So again, I don't recommend that anyone goes out and looks at midday sun or anything like that. You can start out too. This is a very powerful way to do it. If you go outside, close your eyes and look with your third eye. Magic happens. You just go outside, stand in the sun, and look with you have your physical eyes closed, but open up your third eye to the sun. It's psychedelic. amazing things happen. So give that a shot.
There's a word I can relate to, psychedelic.
Yep.
Thanks. It's funny because at first I was going to say, the media tells you not to look directly in the sun when there's an eclipse of some kind. And I'm thinking, but then again, yeah, the media tells you a lot of things that you shouldn't be listening to. So I thought, so that makes sense.
Yeah, always use your own judgment and your own intuition.
But I like that third eye thing and your
Yeah.
psychedelic word.
Yeah. It's fun.
Beautiful. Great question, Cindy. Thank you.
Shayla. Thanks much, Shayla.
My pleasure.
Love your background.
Great. Hi, Bridget. You have some questions?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear
Yeah, I
you.
can hear myself
Yes.
and repeat. Okay, let me take that other ear cup off. So Susan would like to know what you say to Archangel Michael during the cord cutting process. She would like you to repeat it. I bet she's going to take notes.
Okay, sure.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Shayla.
Yeah, you bet. So this is in the cord cutting process. I start with an incantation. And so that's calling in the energy of Archangel Michael, calling in Archangel Michael, asking him for his presence. This is a service that he does for humanity, and he's not bound by space and time. So, he's not going to be like, oh, she's calling me up again. So you don't need to worry about that. You call him in with his blue light sword. And I say, some version of, I'm not really speaking to Archangel Michael, but I'm experiencing the presence of Archangel Michael. Now, when I'm doing this with a client, I'm actually standing and being the sword. My arm is the sword. But when I'm doing it for myself, again, my arm is the sword. I'm just doing it all at the same time. It's nice if you have a client and they're, they can have their eyes closed and just feel the energy of it. But I say, yeah, I said that kind of fast, didn't I? I say, I have either myself or I have the client repeat that I am consciously choosing to sever and cut all disruptive, disharmonious, unhealthy cords that are not for the highest good of all involved with the other person's name or the experience's name. It might be with the banking institutions or, whatever it is. It could be anything, or with the trauma from when I was 7 years old or whatever. But I sever and cut those cords across all time, dimension, space, and reality now. And then with that, the energy of the sword cuts those cords. I do it forward and backward because, our chakras are in front of us and behind us. So we don't want to leave the back out. Do the forward and backward, down, up, each way. But I always add in across all time, dimension, space, and reality, because most of the time when we have these big experiences with another, whether it's with another person or a trauma, it's not just connected to this lifetime. We usually come in with a pattern that karmically we are working out. So when we add in across all time, dimension, space, and reality, now we are in this now moment choosing to release that pattern or that karma from all of our incarnations, from all time, from all space, from every time that we've experienced that forward and backward. And then we're doing it for so much more than just this time around.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you have another question, Bridget?
I don't. Wish Shayla, there's something really special about tonight. Well, lots of things I would say, but you are the only other person that I've heard describe the great central sun as being in the space between universes. And I had so I used to guide channeled meditations. I did this with a small group of people for, I think it was like a couple of years. And one of them, they took us between universes and we had this whole experience of that. And they put us in the great central sun. And as they did this, they created a space within it, which I thought was really strange. And it was angelics and star beings, right, that were taking us. And I mean, I won't go through the whole story, but it was so beautiful. And there was a heartbeat of energetic, it was like a pulse that went out, that they were kind of explaining the waves of, excuse me, let me clear my throat chakra. They were kind of explaining the waves of ascension.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so beautiful. But I always hear everyone describe it as the giant sun in the middle of the universe. But my experience is always that it's in between. And I've been back since. But I love that you are bringing this out, because I feel like it is so powerful for the visualizations and the codes, keys, and frequencies when people visualize it as this enormous, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it too. It was enormous. Like suns are always really big, but this one is like the sun of all suns, so to speak, right? Like the energy of all energies, almost like the heart of source within creation. I don't know, it was beautiful. But I'm so grateful for you doing that and speaking on that in the public forum for other people to really be able to enmesh themselves in those codes, keys, and frequencies and embody them. So thank you.
Thank you. And Bridget, it's interesting that you said that, because I think it was yesterday, I looked up your conversation that you did for Wish a while back. And I listened to some of what you shared, and you were sharing about the new earth and this experience of new earth that you had. I'm like, this is just like my experience of new Lemuria. And I did a masterclass on new Lemuria, and it was so similar in the way that you shared it. And I could just feel it. I'm like, she's talking about new Lemuria, which I experienced as a state of consciousness. I call it a state in the new earth, new Lemuria, but it's a state of consciousness. And it is a new earth, golden realm with emerald, like the emerald essence, like the emerald Buddha, that heart energy.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I can totally see that. I've been in this perceived space, which is obviously a state of being. That's how everything is, right? When we travel, it's all within, really. But I've been there so many times, and as you were describing that essence of the did you call it the emerald Buddha? I was feeling that too. So I think that's amazing. I think we do share a lot of commonalities, which is funny, because the more I hear you, I'm like, yes. So lovely to connect.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you, Bridget. And thanks to our Awake and Ascending family for listening in. I really appreciate you guys. Okay, do we have anyone else that has any questions? Any final questions? Okay, who do we have? Hi, Susie. Let me bring you on up.
Hi, I love your storytelling. If I ever get to do this, I'm sure I will someday. But I just love the fact that you just tell stories. I just love it. And I have a question. I've worked with Steve Nobel a lot. Have you worked with him? Because a lot of his stuff with the galactic sun, and a lot of the stuff was very, very similar. His thing with Michael and cutting the cords. So yeah, it's very, very similar. Do you know of him?
I'm sure that I have heard his name, but I'm not familiar with his work.
Okay, he's in London or something. But anyway, it's very similar. I loved it, and I loved the sun gazing. I've done that. I just resonated so much with what you said. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you for your song and your music.
Oh, I love playing. I love playing for this group. They're so conscious and lovely. Thank you, Waxella.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Susie. And thank you again for always playing for us. That's a joy. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see, Bridget, you have another question?
I just have Jim, our very own
Hi,
Jim. Barely. He says, wait, let me see if I can get this right. Hold on, let me take the other headset off so I don't hear myself and repeat. Storyteller level platinum. He's so cute. We love Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. So with Shayla, that was amazing. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. You really gave us a lot of golden nuggets to think about. And, I'm really into the sun gazing whenever the sun is out. I'm visiting family in Virginia, and it's been rainy, so I haven't been out. So when I head back to Colorado, I'm always, because we have so much sunshine there. And no doubt that's one of the reasons why, I was called, other than my husband, to move to Colorado. And so, for me, as I have been doing this sun gazing, it used to be that from right to left, I was getting like golden codes, and it was almost like light language. But now, recently, which is very odd, and I want to ask your opinion on this, it's almost like I'm getting binary code coming straight down. Have you experienced that as well?
I haven't experienced the binary code. I know someone else who said that she experienced something like that. But I mentioned that psychedelic experience. And a lot like what's behind you on your background. When I really go deeply into sun gazing, and when I meditate in front of the sun, it's like that whole world of geometry or fractal, the fractal universe opens up. And I've had breakthrough experiences. In fact, when I went into New Lemuria, I was in Riviera Maya, and I got up at sunrise or before sunrise, went out, did sun gazing at sunrise, and then sat in a palapa at the edge of the water, and went in front of the sun, and went into a full-on New Earth, Golden Realm, New Lemuria experience. And so I feel like it opens portals for me when I sun gaze, and that if anybody's had breakthrough experiences, whether they're drug induced or whether they're through meditation, there's that world of geometry that you break through, or it's like sacred geometry, or the, whatever you want to call it, the fractal universe. I don't know, but you break through that and then enter, it's like a portal. And then you go to the place you're going. That's what I've experienced, but not the binary code.
Okay. Well, I was just kind of curious, because that's just something recently that has started happening, because in addition to pulling it into the third eye, I really focus on bringing it in to that thymus. And so maybe it has something to do with those codes, but regardless, it's always a very uplifting experience. So I appreciate your sharing that with everyone and all of your stories. You're a wonderful storyteller. And especially the part about the cord cutting, because I think that that's really going to help people. And if you've missed any of Shayla's presentation, you can catch the replay on wishalliance.org, or you can go to the Wish Alliance Facebook page, and Cindy, that was on earlier, kind of helps to keep an eye on that and maintain that for us. So Cindy, wherever you are, I want to give you a big shout out and a thank you for taking your time to do that, because it's always really important to kind of keep things flowing. And so what I'd like to do is offer you the opportunity, if you have any final comments that you would like to make, or any tidbits to share with people, I'd love to hear.
How can I serve in the highest way right now? I think what I'd really like to bring to presence is that, every moment we have this opportunity to connect more deeply and to transform what's in front of us. I'm feeling like sharing this. It's another short story, but it just happened the other day, just a couple of days ago. I was driving my son we were just picking up takeout, and a car accident happened right in the intersection, right next to where we were driving. Like, we were there a fraction of a second earlier. and pulled into the restaurant, we saw like a car literally went tumbling head over, it was just a lot of intense, like people were hurt, no doubt. And we were across the street. Lots of other people went to help, but I went into fear, I went into fear a little bit, and we took back roads home. And the next time I drove was the next morning when I was taking him to the school bus. And I noticed myself going into fear around driving and remembering car accidents, remembering people that I know that have been in car accidents or lost their lives. And that I felt myself shrinking, in that space, and that wasn't comfortable. And then I went straight to Amen Ra, and I called that light of central sun into my heart. I affirmed I am safe. This is while I'm driving. I affirmed I am safe. I am always safe. I am always protected. And I felt that light expanding my heart. And I felt my Merkaba vehicle activate around me. And I felt that my car was an extension of my personal Merkaba vehicle. And I felt that go out and out. And now, ever since then, I'm just like, I'm a little more aware, but I feel so protected. And I just want to bring the awareness that we can use this energy for anything. And anytime you feel yourself going into fear, it's contraction. Anytime you feel yourself like shrinking, backing up, getting small, feeling disempowered, you can call the light of central sun, whatever you want to call it. If God light feels better to you, whatever feels good by any name, the great light of central sun into your heart, and just let yourself expand and affirm, I am safe, I am protected, I am loved, and let yourself feel that and expand out of it. That's how we expand out of fear. And there's a lot of fear-based stuff being thrown into our reality. And so I feel like that's an important tool to have in our toolkit so that we don't get stuck. Because if we contract and shrink every time these fear-based ideas and thought forms come at us, then we're not going to be able to serve the mission and the purpose that we're here for. So I invite all of you, challenge you to play with that, just play with the sun. The sun is source energy. It wants to work with you. It wants to light you up and give you codes and activate you and energize you. And there's endless creativity in how that energy can be used.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I don't see any other questions. So what I'm going to do at this time then is just bring everybody up. All right. Here we go. And I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I always appreciate your being here. Thank you so much for your presence, for the energy that you bring to the show. Thanks to all of our Awake and Ascending people. Thanks to all of our YouTubers and all of our Facebook watchers. We thank you so much. And until we are together again next week, namaste. Have a beautiful week, everybody. Much love to you. Bye.
Thank you. Love you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Shayla.
Bye.
You all.
Bye.
Wait.
This is amazing.
Big hugs. Love you
Wait,
guys.
next,
Love
thank
to the
you again,
fam.
Waxella. Sheila, next week, the Living Light Network with me, Marina Serin, Geraldine Orozco, and Tia Akrish. So please tune in for that one, okay?
Beautiful.
And special surprises, all right?
Okay. Thanks so
How
much.
do we get that
Bill.
though?
Okay.
Is it on YouTube?
No, it's next week's Wish Alliance, Thursday
Okay,
talk,
gotcha.
Thursday event.
Right.
Okay.
But yes, it will be on YouTube. So
Yeah, you'll get the e-blast about it. Much love, Waxella. Sheila,
Thank you,
everybody.
good
Much
night. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Love, so much love.
Wow. Talk about the cavalry coming in. So do you like the shirt? Did you like the Leo shirt? Isn't it beautiful?
Awesome.
Okay.
We can't see it.
So, yeah, Sheila, we'll talk, okay?